Stop listening to crap or China?
No, yeah, the wet markets. Let's
Oh,
put
okay.
that down on the agenda.
Okay. I'm down. That's a very taboo subject, but I'm
Yeah,
down.
let's do
And people on YouTube caught that, so they'll know.
it.
This is Male Entrepreneur Podcast. And we are not going to be talking about wet markets this time. Tune in next week for that. And we are live in 3, 2. All right. Welcome back to Male Entrepreneur, the podcast for men who win, with your host, Purdeep Sangha. Purdeep, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing pretty awesome, man. I'm doing good.
Okay.
Hanging in there. I'm doing good.
Yeah, that was not nearly as enthusiastic as I was hoping for.
Yeah, I know. A thought just popped into my mind as you asked that question. So when my mind was elsewhere for a few seconds before you asked that. So I'm back in the game now. Put it that way.
Okay. So I'm going to start off the show by admitting something. This week, I have listened on Audible. I've listened to As a Man Thinketh 3 times. Maybe I'm just going stir crazy, but man, I feel like I needed that book so much this week. And I know that we've talked about the book in the past. Have you gone back and re-listened to it or reread it lately?
I skim through it with my son every once in a while. So once a week, we usually go through a couple pages.
Nice. Just a recommendation for the listeners. I think that, man, while everybody's freaking out and negativity is, I mean, it's everywhere around you. The people are negative. If you even see people, the news is all negative. Social media is just filled with negativity. And I needed the message in that book. So it was a huge bonus for me this week to go through that book 3 times.
3 times. Wow, I'm impressed, man. That's pretty good. That's
It's
called ingraining your brain with the right stuff.
right. It's a short, a listen. It's like an hour and a half listen or 45 minutes listen if you listen on double speed. So it's not too hard to get through. It's probably real easy to do a quick read as well. But I wanted to talk to you about that. So much negativity, so much crap out there, and man, it's easy to get overwhelmed with.
Yeah, where do I start? The biggest thing is we need leadership, and we need leadership from men. Uh, this is so important right now because in all fronts, political fronts, community fronts, I'm not going to say that there's not leadership out there. There are some people actually showing very strong leadership, but we as a whole, as men, need to stand up. We need to rise up and actually rise to the occasion. And so this is really, in one hand, I'm super disappointed in terms of seeing what's happening out there. But on the other hand, I'm like, there's so much opportunity to get men to actually stand up. We have not been doing the right job. We have not been coming together as a community. We're having disconnected conversations. Everybody's into hoarding and watching out for themselves. People are talking about their guns. And I know I had this really interesting post the other day that I posted, and I understand that I'm from Canada, for example, and it's a different environment, but we need to first have conversations about how we help each other, how we help our neighbor, before we start focusing on our bunkers and a month's worth of food and who we're going to shoot if they come onto our property. Like that is going in a completely different direction, because that's just propelling the conversations of fear, of negativity. We need to have proper conversations right now, because this could be the worst thing that happens to the human race, or this could be the best thing, right? And it's just based on how we think about it. And if we come together as a community, I can tell you from a Canadian perspective, we are coming together. There's a lot of like our political system has come together. I have to say, there's very little finger pointing happening right now. Everybody's focused on that. We've come up with a pretty cool stimulus package for Canadians. Like they came up with a 75% wage subsidy for small businesses, which is pretty phenomenal. So we're really coming together. Communities are coming together. Business communities are coming together to say, how do we overcome this? Schools are coming together. This is, I'm positive to see that, but I'm just seeing as a whole from men, I'm not seeing that strong leadership. So that goes back to what you're saying, Nathan, is, I think every man, you're absolutely bang on point, should be picking up that book. If you're sitting at home, read the book. Read the book. That is one of the most phenomenal books that you can read out there. Because here's the most important thing. You will figure out who you are as a man through this particular time,
Uh,
because you either be a man and stand up or you don't. You'll be one of those guys that puts your tail between your legs and you hide. This is something you have to determine.
so I want to add some contrast to that, and I'm gonna add a little bit of my own experience. I personally, I love guns. I'm a huge gun nut. I love going out and shooting. Um, uh, uh, I live in kind of a secluded community. I would say probably the majority of the people around me are gun owners, but they're also very friendly. They're also very supportive. If one neighbor, I live in a cul-de-sac and we live right on the edge of the mountains. If one neighbor forgets to shut their garage one night, they don't really have to worry about it because nobody's going to go loot them. One of the other neighbors will probably come up and be like, hey, you left your garage open or you left your lights in your car on. Like, that's kind of the environment that I live in now versus growing up in LA where it was the total opposite. I was a gun owner there as well, but for totally different reasons. Uh, but you said though, the one thing that you said that I think is totally different here, you said that there's no finger pointing. Man, here it's so crazy because like Trump will say a month ago, Trump said, there's nothing to worry about. And CNN said, there's nothing to worry about. And BuzzFeed said, there's nothing to worry about. And now CNN is saying Trump was totally irresponsible because he said there was nothing to worry about. And then Trump supporters are like, CNN was totally irresponsible because they said there was nothing to worry about. And then Trump will say word for word the exact same thing that Cuomo will say. And then Trump supporters will say, can you believe how stupid Cuomo was? And then Cuomo supporters will say, can you believe how stupid Trump was? And they both said the exact same thing. And it's nuts to me that in the middle of all of this, it's the opposite of what you guys got going on. Everybody's pointing fingers and everybody's guilty of the exact same thing that they're pointing the finger at the other side for doing. And I get that when people are scared that they often go back to the tribal mentality, but it's
Mhm.
so weird being somebody who's not on either side watching, it's almost maddening to me, man.
Well, it is maddening, and that's why we need the leadership even more. And I used to believe that, especially when a certain person, Trump, came into office, that it starts from the top, but leadership can start from the bottom, and that's my belief now. Because the government at the top is not going to do their job from a leadership perspective. We need to do it from a community perspective. We need to do it as husbands, fathers, members of our community come together and start saying, yeah, who's representing our community? Who are the people that, if we take a look at it from a political perspective, I don't want to talk about that too much, but yes, who are we electing from our community perspective? Are they representing us as a whole? But how are we coming together as fathers of, the kids on the soccer team, for example, or the fathers that where the kids go to the same school? That is the most important thing. I have to say too, even in Canada, although we've come together, that's still something that I would like to see guys step up to even more, because I'm seeing a little bit too much fear. The fear is legitimate, though, I have to say. Like, I'm not going to say you shouldn't feel fear, but there's a point in time where you say there's nothing you can do about it. You can't really do anything about the virus except for keep yourself healthy, right? You can't do anything about the economy except for do what you need to do on your part. So the situation is going to run itself. We just need to be cognizant about what we're doing and how we come together. That's why, I'm reaching out to as many men as I can and saying it's going to be okay. Let's move forward. In fact, it's really interesting because I have never seen men, uh, very successful men, even at this level of fear in my entire life.
Mhm.
So many men are feeling this way because they've worked their entire lives, and whether it's for their business or it's their home, whatever it is, their family, now they're questioning, saying, not only how do I feed my family, but now they're questioning their self-worth. Because here's the difference, and that's why this book is so important that Nathan talked about, As a Man Thinketh, is because it all comes down to who you are as a man. It all comes down to who you are from a character perspective. That is the most important thing. And that's why, for me, and I'll share with this, and this isn't from an arrogance perspective, there's parts of my business right now that some major contracts just fell through because of the timing, right? It's just boom. I was just like, shoot, like that's not nice, but I have to live with it. There's other parts of my business that are doing great, but I am totally comfortable losing everything. And that sounds stupid in some ways, but it is because I know that from ground up, I will come back. I will come back and create what I need to create. That's not going to change me as a human being. I've worked 40 years to build who I am as a human being rather than what I have. That's what we need to focus on more. And I think that's teaching us from a society perspective that doesn't matter what you have. You can be a celebrity, you can still get sick. You can be a celebrity and have a beautiful mansion, you will still get sick, right? And so you can have your private jets, your planes, whatever it is, you can still be, open to these challenges that we have as a normal society, as the everyday human being. So it's a real wake up call. It's an important wake up call, but it goes back to what you were talking about, Nathan, is really watching who you are associating with. And actually, that's why it's really, I want to share this because this is really, I'm excited about this because I've started another podcast. It's called Entrepreneurs Who Thrive in Any Economy. It's a 5-minute quick snippet podcast, just daily, helping, because this is only being released once a week. That one's a daily podcast, but I was also invited to be on another podcast, which is launching on Easter, I think April 13th or 12th, but it's called the Coaches Council. And I'm extremely excited about that too, because we have 5 other high performing guys that coach NHL players, NBA players. They're the top in their industry, for example, coming together at the perfect time to share a united message to people out there. And we're hoping that it has a massive impact in terms of helping guys, helping even the women that listen, to really get the message across that we need to do things differently. We need to come together as a society. I think people are tired right now of the finger pointing. I'm tired of watching the finger pointing, man. It's so draining. Why can't we just come together? I used to make, not, we had family friends, for example, back when we were younger. They used to come over all the time and hand us, they were Jehovah's, and they used to give us the pamphlets. And I used to love that. And part, I would joke around. I'm going to be like, okay, which one are you sending me this time? But I used to love them because it was almost like the animals were together, the people were together. It was like this kumbaya moment. I know that sounds kind of, stretch for human society, but we need to get to a point where we're actually coming together.
So one thing that you mentioned, and I want to get your take on, it reminded me of an old saying that I read a long time ago. It was like a sailor saying, which was, you can't control the wind, but you can adjust your sails. What can people be doing right now to adjust their sails?
That's so brilliant, man. I don't even want to say anything because I think that quote just says it all. Um, but I think the first thing, it goes back to what we were talking about here, is be careful who you're hanging out with and be careful what you're listening to. Even for myself, I am staying away from Instagram and YouTube, for example, because the algorithms there, they continue to perpetuate the same material. And I found myself getting the same material and having the same thinking. I said, shit, I cannot do that anymore. So be careful what you do. If you're on social media, you're getting a biased opinion. You're getting a biased look. If you're on watching news, you're getting a biased look. You have to have a diverse a source of information. Hang around with people that are positive thinkers, because they're the ones that are going to get through this, not the naysayers. Honestly, you're going to get so hurt by hanging around with people that are just bringing themselves down. As I mentioned before, we talk about it from a spirituality perspective or even a physics perspective when it comes to energy. Energy is transferred through words, through body language. It's transferred through just hanging around with people. You are taking that energy in. So be careful what you take in. I think that's the biggest thing. That's why it's so important to have the right information. And this is where I'm going to talk about a little bit about the new initiative that I've created, actually. And this was in the works for a while. But what I'm seeing right now is, for business owners, they are getting such misinformation when it comes to the economy, when it comes to what's happening. So I've brought on some economic analysts onto the team, and we've created basically a team. It's called Leading Acumen, and you can check it out at leadingacumen.com. But it's really about giving business owners the right information so they can make the right choices and judgment. And Nathan, you asked the question before, what does acumen mean? And I picked it very purposefully. It means the ability to make better judgments and quick decisions. That's what we need to have as business owners and entrepreneurs right now. That's why it's called Leading Acumen, because you want to have the leading ability to make better decisions and take more effective action. Otherwise, you're going to be left in the dust. So that's out there. And I did it very purposely because for those of you who are interested, you know what, you need proper information because I'm all of a sudden there's so-called experts now in the economy that are posting stuff. And honestly, a lot of this stuff goes over my head. I spent the entire day with one of the economists, economic analysts, I shouldn't say economists, but and he enlightened me in so many different ways because I thought I was pretty intellectual and smart when it comes to this. But it was like, oh my God, it's a completely different world when you actually are an analyst, when you understand this kind of stuff, right? And the one thing he said to me, because I said, yeah, I put out this report, he actually created this report and I added my 2 cents into it. And he said, it was funny because I said, well, how can we interpret this 6 months out? You know, he's like, you don't even ask me that question. He's like, you don't ask an analyst that question, or economics will comment on it, or economists, because they're 50-50 right, but you never ask an analyst because we know there's no way of predicting that right now,
Mhm.
which was really refreshing for me because I was like, wow, this person knows what he's talking about. He's not just talking out of his yin yang, right? So I'm happy about this because we need to feed proper information. I beg you, and I say this to everybody out there that's listening, is unless you know that there's some factual truth to it, if you're going to post something, please put, hey, look, this is just my opinion. This is just something I read. This is just something I thought of, rather than posting it as if it's actually fact. Because so many people are doing that. And you cannot believe how much harm it's doing to people because people, believe it or not, as I mentioned before, they will take this information in unconsciously and it will influence them. So, all of the stuff that we're posting, even if they're articles, say, hey, look, I found this interesting. I'm not sure if it's true, but check this out. Make your own judgment, make your own opinion.
Uh-huh. Man, a lot of value there. If I was going to add any one thing to it, I would say be respectful of people who have countering opinions as well. I see a lot of people saying, I had somebody who has been a longtime friend flip out on me yesterday and start cussing at me and accusing me of all kinds of stuff that I was like, that's not even my opinion. That's not even my position. All I'm saying is I see this side and I also see the other side of the argument. And they were just like flipping out and it turned into curse words. And I was just like, wow. And this guy's a professional business owner. Uh, up until this point, very rational, cool, calm-headed person. um, these times can bring out the worst in people, and try to be there to add some calm and serenity to the situation rather than feeding the fire, I think.
Well, bang on, because here's a moment like we talked about where this virus came from or what's happening with this virus. At some point in time, like I'm pissed. I want to know what the world organizations or world countries have come to get done to actually overcome this. This should have been dealt with in a way better manner. But now is not the time to discuss that. Yes, there should be repercussions for countries that send these or actually spread these viruses and don't do a proper job in mitigating it. But now is not the time to discuss that. Now is the time for us to come together as people, as human beings, as men, as leaders to say, what can we do to overcome this challenge? Then let's talk about how we're going to box it out, right?
Absolutely. Pretty. Where can people? Again, I'm interested in the website that you just mentioned. Where can people go to check that out?
Yeah, if you go to leadingacumen.com.
Awesome. And if they want more episodes of the podcast,
Well, you could go to youtubeformen.com or mailpodcast.com.
awesome. Until next time, man, we will catch you later.
Yep. Can't wait for the next episode.
All right. We'll see you then. Stop the recording. We're going off of YouTube.